For spine-chilling true horror tales that reveal sinister secrets and unexplainable terror. In the quaint suburb of Maplewood, the peaceful facade disguises a chilling darkness lurking just below the surface. Jenna, a weary single mother of two, fights nightly battles alone, chasing the whispers of dread that fill her quiet home. Her kids, Max and Jamie, once bubbling with laughter, now exchanged innocent giggles for anxious glances into the shadows. The neighborhood, where neighbors used to share friendly hellos, had transformed into a haunted silence that seeped into Jenna's bones like a creeping chill. One sleepless night, while scrubbing dishes under the flickering kitchen light, Jenna caught a glimpse of something in the corner of her eye, an eerie figure shifting just past the tree line. It darted away before she could fully register its shape. "It's just my imagination," she murmured, trying to shake off the unease creeping up her spine, but the feeling settled deep within her. Her children began talking about an invisible friend they played with outside, whispering secrets with glee. Those whispers turned her blood cold. Days passed, each one weaving the threads of her growing fears, a collage of her fears rich and suffocating. Then came the whispers, drifting through the darkened yard, intertwining with the still air, sending shivers down her spine. Jenna's heart raced as she overheard hushed conversations at the community center about missing children, a nightmare that completed the picture she dreaded the most. And then there was Mr. Paulson, the always smiling church leader, offering help with that unsettling glint in his eye. His geniality felt like a noose tightening around her throat. Jenna's nightmares bloomed into reality when Jamie disappeared. Panic shot through her like a razor, slicing through her reason. "Jamie," she cried, voice raw, as if it could pierce the dark corner of her backyard swallowed by shadows. She sprinted towards the police station, breathless, heart pounding against her ribs, only to be met with the same hollow reassurances that felt like daggers to her trembling heart. It wasn't enough. Not for a mother who felt her world shattering around her. Time dragged, each day a reminder of her child's absence, while paranoia seeped into the cracks of her mind. Mr. Paulson's strange comments haunted her thoughts, whispers about family sacrifices at the gatherings in the church basement. Jenna's heart thrummed wildly, each detail connected dots that shouldn't even exist. She had trusted him. The thought cranked panic into dizzying heights while whispering fears cradled her. Driven by desperation and armed only with a flashlight, Jenna ventured into the woods behind Mr. Paulson's home. Each step crackled with anxiety as the air thickened with silence. But then the whispers crescendoed, leading her deeper, twisting like tendrils around her heart. Suddenly, she stumbled onto a clearing, her footfalls muffled on the damp earth. Her heart fell. The clearing held stone markers encircling a dark pit, a haunting invitation shrouded darkness deeper than anything she had felt before. The chilling quiet enveloped her. With every realization, terror gripped her tighter. The whispers faded, leaving only the echo of her breath. She stood at the precipice of her fear here, in the dark, where her worst suspicions could become reality. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A pulse of dread vibrated through her. What was lurking down below? The silence screamed louder than any voice. As she stared into the abyss, Jenna faced a sinister truth. The shadows weren't just around her, they were entwined with the people she thought she knew. She took a step closer, the ground shifting beneath her feet, sending fear racing through her veins. Would she find her daughter? Or was something far worse waiting in the depths? The air grew colder, swirling around Jenna as she leaned closer to the pit. Her breath came out in visible gasps, mixing with the moist earth that clung to her feet like grasping hands. In that frozen moment, she could almost hear Jamie's laughter, innocent and joyful, now juxtaposed with darkness. A surge of desperation pushed her forward. "Jamie," She called again, her voice cracking, the words spilling from her lips like an incantation, hoping to conjure her daughter back from whoever or whatever had taken her. The silence swallowed her plea, returning only the sinister rustling that seemed to encircle her. Fingers trembling, she lifted her flashlight, illuminating the jagged edges of the pit. And that when she saw it, the remnants of clothes, small and crumpled, catching the faint light. They were unmistakably Jamie's. Time froze again as chills coursed through her body. Jenna staggered back, almost slipping into the dark embrace of that pit, horror electrifying her senses. Her mind raced, connecting fragmented images of Jamie's disappearance with the whispers, the invisible friend, the church gatherings. Mr. Paulson, with his too wide smile, now appeared as a specter of nightmares, someone lurking behind a friendly mask. She couldn't just stand there, she had to confront him. With urgency fueling her, Jenna turned and navigated through the trees, branches scratching against her skin like claws seeking to pull her back. Each step resonated with the heavy weight of dread. The chilly air nipped at her skin, a stark reminder of the danger that enveloped her. What awaited her in that church basement haunted her thoughts. As she approached the church, its silhouette loomed against the dark sky, an unsettling shadow against the last traces of light. The front door swung ever so slightly, creaking like a whisper inviting her inside. Doubt fluttered in her gut like a trapped bird. Was this the place of salvation, or entrapment? Jenna crept inside, feeling the atmosphere change as the wooden door closed behind her. The quiet was thick, pressing in on her. The dim hallways twisted like a maze, and every shadow felt alive, watching, waiting. She turned her flashlight on, the beam quivering as she scanned her surroundings. Her heartbeat echoed unnervingly in the silence. Silently, she made her way down to the basement, where flickering candles cast unsettling shadows against the stone walls. The rhythmic sound of soft chanting reached her ears, a sickly sweet melody woven with an undercurrent of malevolence. She froze on the last step, peering into the room where a circle of people sat in cloaks, their heads bowed, surrounding an altar. Suddenly, a voice, a familiar one, rose above the others. Jenna's heart sank as she recognized it. "Mommy." Jamie's voice, faint and terrified, broke through the chilling atmosphere. The cloaked figures raised their heads, revealing masks that twisted the human form into grotesque mockeries. Mr. Paulson stood at the center, the flickering candlelight casting an eerie glow on his wide, twisted smile. "You're just in time, Jenna," he crooned, a sickening lilt in his tone. "We're about to begin, the final sacrifice." Panic surged anew as Jenna felt a cold grip around her heart. She couldn't let this happen. She wouldn't. With newfound determination, she dashed forward, screaming Jamie's name, desperate to break the spell woven around this horror. She needed to fight against the terror, against the darkness creeping into every part of her mind, but as she reached the edge of the circle, they turned in unison, their eyes glinting with a predatory gleam. Jenna stood on the precipice of destruction, caught between nightmares and reality. What would sacrifice mean? What stood waiting in the darkness ahead? With her heart racing, Jenna had no choice but to plunge into the unknown. Would she escape with her child, or was it already too late? The air around Jenna thickened, pulsing with an oppressive energy that tore at her resolve. She flung herself forward, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm as she broke through the circle formed by the cloaked figures. The chanting morphed into a jarring cacophony, drowning out everything else. Blood roared in her ears, drowning the echo of Jamie's pleading voice. "Mommy." The sound sliced through the noise, a desperate call that anchored her in madness. Jenna's eyes darted from one face to another, searching for the familiar warmth of her daughter. But all she found were those hollow, masked gazes, blank eyes that seemed to drink in her fear, feeding a perverse hunger that made her skin crawl. In a wild burst, she lunged toward the altar where Jamie sat, bound and wide-eyed, terror etched across her tiny features, a candle flickering before her like a malevolent star. "Get away from her!" Jenna screamed, her voice shaking, cracked against the shrieks of the cultists escalating around her. They surged closer, arms reaching out, the stench of damp earth and something metallic filling the air. Sacrifice must be made. Mr. Paulson's voice rang out, smooth yet chilling. The words curled around her like a noose. You can't stop what has already begun. But she would try. Jenna's focus narrowed on the ropes binding Jamie's delicate wrists. She surged forward, knocking over one cloaked figure who tumbled backward, crashing into others like dominoes. The chaos erupted, screams mingled with the chant as they scrambled to contain the disruption. Mommy, please help me. Jamie's voice hitched, pulling Jenna's heart with desperation. With a frantic tug, Jenna reached the altar, her fingers clawing at the bonds. They were tight and slick, a twisted knot of evil that fought her grip. She heard footsteps stomping behind her, the cold breath of the cultists creeping too close. Then, she felt that a cold hand grasped her shoulder, the fingers curling around her like iron. She spun, rage and fear igniting her fury. Snatching the nearest candle, she swung it wildly. It shattered against a mask, the hot wax spilling and sizzling against skin. The figure recoiled but was quickly replaced by another. They were relentless, this was their domain. Let her go. Jenna screamed, and in that moment of charged panic, an idea struck her, something primal clawing its way to the surface. The altar was the focal point, it had power. Jenna had to turn it against them. Pulling Jamie close, she whispered, "Hold on, baby." She yanked the candle from the altar, and as she moved to the center of the swirling chaos, she raised it high. In the name of anyone who has suffered, I reject this darkness. The cultists paused, the chanting faltering, confused glances darting between them. Light flickered as the candle's flame danced, flickering against the shadows, as if testing the audacity of her defiance. You think you can fight this? Mr. Paulson laughed, his inexplicable grin revealing something lurking beneath the surface, a rage, a hunger. You will join them. A sudden shift surged through the crowd. The air crackled, and Jenna felt the energies collide. As if a dam had broken, a chilling howl erupted, reverberating off the stone walls. Now, Jamie. Run. Jenna shoved her daughter as the forces clashed, a maelstrom of light and shadow enveloping them, but just as Jamie stumbled forward, an unseen force yanked Jenna back, pulling her into the sea of darkness that roared around her. She reached out, fingers grasping empty air. She twisted, fighting against the pull, the chanting rising again, drowning out her hopes. No. Jamie. Jenna grappled with the phantoms closing in, each whispering promises of despair, craving her surrender. She was losing the battle. Was she about to become just another sacrifice to this foul god? Amid the chaos, just as she felt her grip loosen, a blinding flash ignited. In that moment of brilliance, she glimpsed Jamie standing at the edge of the circle, staring wide-eyed but unyielding, holding tight to the flame Jenna had ignited moments before. What had she unleashed, and could it save them both, or would they be consumed by the darkness forever? The blinding flash sputtered, a flare cutting through the darkness. Jenna shielded her eyes, bewildered and frightened. The cold grip that had dragged her back loosened slightly, and she dared to glance at Jamie. There stood her daughter, candle raised, her innocence ablaze with a fierce light against the terror surrounding them. The cultists shuddered, faces twisting in confusion. A fear Jenna had never witnessed before crinkled their masked features. All at once, their chanting sputtered into silence, a collective gasp echoing through the cavernous space. Jenna's heart raced as she seized this moment. Jamie, get out of the circle. She continued to wrestle with the looming shadows that threatened to swallow her whole. Amidst the uproar, Jenna felt her body teetering dangerously at the edge of despair. The candle's flame took on a life of its own, flickering wildly as if it were alive, feeding off Jamie's steadfastness. Jenna reached for her, her fingers brushing against the air as another ethereal hand took hold, dragging her deeper into the swirling chaos. Join us. Mr. Paulson's voice rang out above the din, thick like smoke. Join your daughter in the eternal darkness. No. I'll never join you. Jenna screamed, her voice barely piercing the veil of dread surrounding her. The presence tugging at her insides pulsed, drawing her closer to the ground where ancient symbols glimmered, pulsating like a dark heartbeat. In desperate defiance, she closed her eyes, clinging to the thought of Jamie, that love burning clearer than any fear. With a surge of adrenaline, she slammed her hand down on the altar, feeling warmth radiate beneath her palm, pushing against the cold grip of despair that clung to her every limb. By the blood of those who came before, she shouted, unsettling even her own heart as she felt the very air thicken with power. I command you, release her. The candle flickered, momentarily flaring into an agonizing brightness. Jenna felt it, the altar responding to her fierce cries, as if it had been waiting for her to unlock its depths. The shadows wavered, stretching, recoiling as if struck by an unseen force. Then, the floor underfoot began to tremble. The chaos intensified, the remaining cultists gripped in panic. No! They yelled. The sacrifice is ours. With frantic steps, Jenna turned, trailing her fingertips along the altar, the symbols pulsing beneath her touch. Jamie! She called again, her voice echoing through the writhing air. You have to trust me. Keep holding that candle. But even as Jamie held on, Jenna felt the darkness reaching. Figures surged forward, arms grasping at her, mouths agape, chanting rising like a tide once more. It was overwhelming, the sheer force of the cultists threatening to drown her defiance. The altar erupted in a blinding surge of white-hot light, hot enough to singe skin. Jenna squinted through the glare, her mind racing with the frightening prospect of losing Jamie. Would the child's strength be enough? Now she could only hear the blood thrumming in her ears, along with Jamie's steady breathing. The struggle between light and dark vibrated through their bodies. Jenna plunged forward, arms extended, desperate to reach her daughter, whose resolve seemed to flicker like the candle's flame. Don't look back, baby. We're breaking free. But as they pushed against the shadows, the howling winds screamed warnings, and Jenna sensed doubt creeping in. Had she truly harnessed the altar's power, or was she simply grasping at threads of hope woven from the darkest fabric? As the light began to wane, the shadows drew nearer, tugging at Jenna's ankles, thick as fog. She felt Jamie's small hands slipping, the grip of terror tightening around them both. Mommy! Jamie cried out, eyes wide with fear. The light flickered, a desperate last flicker in the overwhelming gloom. And at that moment, Jenna realized she needed to make a choice that would seal their fate. What could be darker than the wrath of the altar they had awakened? And when the shadows began to whisper deeply in her ears, what would they promise? Jenna's heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat in her chest, as the flicker of the candle light fought against the suffocating dark. She could feel the shadows clawing at her, icy fingers wrapping around her ankles, trying to drag her under. The noise swelled like a monstrous wave, drowning out all but the primal scream of her fear. Hold on, Jamie! She shouted, forcing herself to focus. She couldn't let go. Not now. I can't. Jamie screamed. The vibrant light of the candle was wavering, and Jenna saw her daughter's shoulders trembling. Each flicker of the flame felt like a countdown. How much time did they have left? In a panic, Jenna yanked on the altar, feeling its pulsing energy flow like a heartbeat beneath her fingers. She recited the chants she had read, her voice catching, a fragile thread against the chaos swirling around them. I command you, stop. You have no power here. The shadows retreated slightly, as if in shock, and for a fleeting moment, Jenna felt hope flicker to life. But then a growl, low and ominous, rolled through the cavern, a sound that vibrated deep within her bones. The cultists, now riled by frustration, lunged toward them, chanting louder. Your power is fading. Mr. Paulson's voice cut through the noise, thick and slippery. You cannot hope to defeat us. Jenna could see the greed etched into his features, cloaked in darkness but unmistakably human. He was losing control, and desperation twisted his face. The others faltered, glancing toward their leader, uncertainty creeping into their eyes as the shadows around them writhed in response. "Mommy, please!" Jamie cried, her tiny voice barely piercing the swirling storm. The candle flickered again, and Jenna felt her stomach drop. How could she protect her daughter when the darkness promised so much more? What horrors awaited if they fell into the hands of these cultists? "No!" Jenna shouted, summoning every ounce of strength. "You are not a part of this." She slammed her hand back down, feeling the altar pulse violently under her touch. "By those who came before, I cast you out." The very air crackled. Suddenly, the candle erupted into a blinding light, forcing Jenna to squint. The shadows screeched, retreating momentarily from the radiant force. But it was fleeting. The ground shuddered beneath them, and the relics around the altar began to crack and splinter. Then, the candle's light dimmed. Only a dull glow remained, and Jenna's panic soared. The cultists' voices blended, melding into a haunting symphony of despair. They reached out, faces morphing into grotesque visages of fury and desperation. "Join us!" They howled, their breaths rancid and cold like death. Jenna could feel her grip on reality waning, the very ground sinking beneath her feet. "Jamie!" She shouted again, her voice cracking as she pulled her daughter closer. But the shadows writhed tighter, pulling them both, prying them apart. "Let her go!" Jenna cried, feeling the desperation clawing into her throat, choking her words. "You'll never have her." A strange silence fell, as if the world itself held its breath. The cultists paused, confusion flickering across their faces, and for a split second, Jenna sensed a shift like a door creaking open to another realm. And then, the shadows answered back. Muffled whispers grew louder, intertwining with the chanting, circling around Jenna like a noose. "Your choice, Jenna. Give in to the power, join the eternal night." The words rang in her ears as the altar pulsated, a heartbeat of pure malevolence, pressing against her skin. She felt the promises they wove, dark and seductive, beckoning with tantalizing images of power, of protection. "Jamie," she whispered through a trembling breath, caught at the precipice. Would she dare? The altar's call was intoxicating, but at what cost? As the darkness twisted around her, Jenna shut her eyes tight against the temptation. She needed to decide, but would her courage withstand the suffocating dread of surrender? With one last look at Jamie, the choice loomed large before her, and she braced against the darkness. "I will not fall to you." But the altar shuddered underfoot, and Jenna felt the weight of its wrath just as Jamie's frightened gasp cut through the chaos. What price would she pay for freedom? Would the price be too high when the shadows began to chant her name, an omen of what was to come? Just as the finality of her declaration left Jenna's lips, the shadows converged, a frenzied whirl of darkness that consumed the last faint glimmers of light. Jamie's small frame trembled in her grasp, her wide eyes searching her mother's face for reassurance, an anchor in the encroaching chaos. Then, with a thunderous crash, the altar split open. A cavernous maw, dark and undulating, yawned before them, releasing an icy wind that carried the scent of decay. Jenna staggered back, squeezing Jamie tightly against her chest. The cultists grinned, their faces distorted by a twisted joy that twisted everything inside her. "No more light, no more hope," they chanted, their voices rising like a chilling symphony echoing off the stone walls. "Mommy, I'm scared." Jamie whimpered, clinging to her. Jenna's heart raced, a drum of fear pounding in her ears. She looked into her daughter's eyes, desperately searching for a flicker of hope. If she could hold on, if they could just stand together, maybe they could push back the darkness. "I won't let them take you," she vowed, steeling her resolve. Shadows writhed and lashed out at her, brushing against her skin like damp silk. Jenna squeezed her eyes shut and shouted, "You don't belong to this world. I break your hold." But the shadows merely laughed, chorus after curse, mocking her refusal. The altar echoed with a deep, throaty growl, and Jenna felt the ground shake beneath them. Momentarily, the voices stilled, an uneasy quiet permeating the air. "Join us," Mr. Paulson's voice slithered between them, smooth and chilling, like ice creeping along her spine. You cannot protect her from what's inside you, Jenna. It's your legacy. Embrace it. No. Jenna cried, shaking her head as if she could physically dismiss the thoughts spiraling in her mind. She felt the weight of something ancient and powerful within her, a storm battling her will. You will not win. A flash of heat surged through her hand, the altar glowing faintly in response to her fierce denial. The heat snaked up her arm, crawling to her heart. Look! Jamie pointed, her little finger trembling toward the altar's shadows that began to ripple, warping like the surface of disturbed water. Mommy, it's alive. Jenna's eyes shot up to the altar. It was pulsing now, a rhythmic swell of darkness and light, struggling like a creature caught between two worlds. For a heartbeat, she thought they could win, then reality struck like a thunderbolt, tearing through her haze of defiance. With each pulse, visions surged through her mind, images of terrifying beauty and unspeakable power. She saw herself standing among the cultists, draped in shadow and power. The promise of control wrapped around her like a lover's embrace. Use it, take it, a whisper curled through her thoughts, seducing her further. Mommy, the shadows are trying to take you. Jenna exhaled shakily, snapping back to the present. The temptation clawed at her, but the sound of Jamie's voice grounded her. What would it mean to be powerful? What was left of her sanity? Do I sacrifice everything for a moment of strength? Panic surged through her veins as she faced the altar and the looming shadows. If I give in, what becomes of Jamie? The choice coiled tighter around her heart, suffocating and heavy. Jenna. Jamie edged closer, her innocence and trust igniting Jenna's spirit. Suddenly, the shadows wailed, screeching in anger, furious at her hesitance. Jenna's heart raced as flames flickered back to life, bright and steadfast. It was more than a candle, it was a lifeline, an opportunity. With a roar from deep within, she forced the darkness back, raising her hand toward the altar. I reject you. But as the shadows recoiled, something colder than fear whispered back into her ear. Your fate is sealed, Jenna, forever intertwined. The ground trembled. The candle flickered violently, its flame threatening to extinguish. The promise of power slipped further from her grasp, drifting into the abyss. Hold on tight, Jamie. Jenna shouted, but her voice strained against the rising chaos. What were they becoming? The shadows pressed ever closer, and just as hope flickered once more, an earth-shattering roar erupted, and the altar began to collapse. Mommy! Jamie screamed, her small hands gripping Jenna's tighter. Everything turned to chaos as the world around them unraveled, and Jenna knew no matter what happened next, nothing would ever be the same. Could she truly fight against destiny? As the altar crumbled, she felt the ground slipping beneath her feet, and terror seeped into every fiber of her being. Were they free or just falling deeper into darkness? The world around them echoed with the crunch of disintegrating stone as the altar caved in, sending a torrent of debris cascading toward Jenna and Jamie. Jenna's heart raced faster than the chaos striking all around them. This was not just an altar, it was a portal, a conduit to something they should never have witnessed, and now it was breaking apart like a dam, unleashing darkness on everything in its wake. Mommy, help us. Jamie's small voice pierced through the din, a desperate plea that echoed in Jenna's ears, grounding her even as it threatened to drown her in fear. Run! Jenna shouted, urgency clawing at her throat as she forced herself to turn away from the annihilation of what had once been solid ground beneath their feet. She had to escape. They had to find a way out, but the shadows weren't done with them. They surged forward, slashing at the edges of her vision, demanding her surrender with each suffocating gust of icy breath that passed over them. Listen to me. Mr. Paulson's voice cut through the thrumming chaos, smooth as silk but layered with malice. You can't deny what you truly are. It's in your blood, Jenna. Embrace it, and you will save your daughter. Get away from us. Jenna roared, gripping Jamie tighter, refusing to let the tendrils of darkness twist around them. But as they stumbled backward, the ground trembling beneath their feet, Jenna felt it the ancient call drawing her in, seducing her with promises of power and protection. Images flooded her mind, each more tempting than the last. She could see herself draped in the very shadows that sought to devour them, basking in dominion over the very forces that threatened them now. "Mommy!" Jamie whimpered, pulling at her sleeve, and Jenna's resolve solidified like tempered steel. She could not become what Mr. Paulson wanted. No matter how seductive the darkness was, she had one unyielding truth anchoring her: love. Just then, the altar's last remnants shattered before them, expelled like a mating screech of a beast turned on itself. The walls reverberated with the remnants of the cultists' chants, growing frantic, and Jenna gritted her teeth as the void began pulling airtime into its depths, a bottomless pit birthed from their biggest fears. "Jenna!" shouted one of the cultists, scrambling backward as the shadows devoured him whole, "don't let it claim you." With a gasp of horror, Jenna instinctively turned her attention toward Jamie. The shadows lunged, snapping at her heels as they retreated, but Jenna remained resolute. She could hear the fluttering of the candlelight behind her, dimming at a terrifying pace. They had to act fast, there was no time for hesitation. "Close your eyes, Jamie," Jenna shouted, cradling her daughter close. She shut her eyes too, summoning every ounce of defiance. "Breathe with me. We fight together." As the shadows encroached, Jenna felt the warmth of the fading candle flicker in her mind, a last remnant of light in a darkened hell. "I reject you," she screamed, and the sentiment washed over her, merging with the rising fear. It created a shield, something between the shadows and her love for Jamie, yet the shadows hissed, angry and vengeful, swirling like a tempest around them. They raced toward the void with Jenna and Jamie at the center, and just when Jenna thought they would be consumed, a brilliant flash erupted from the heart of her defiance, the same warmth that had reached up her arm moments before. The shadows recoiled, howling in pain. For a moment, it felt like they had found a way, a path of safety against the black tide. But the shadows were crafty, the chaos morphed into something darker, and Jenna's heart sank as she felt the grip within her start to tug back against her will. "Mommy!" Jamie gasped, eyes wide, sensing the shift. "No!" Jenna yelled, now wrestling against the chains of fate closing around her once more. Hadn't she fought hard enough? Would every sacrifice be in vain? Shadows whispered through the air, promising her power beyond her wildest dreams if only she took the step into the abyss. A new vision flashed. Before her dominance in the chaos, ultimate control. "Mommy, please." Jamie's voice trembled, pulling her back. But just then, with a single deafening crack, the ground beneath them shattered completely, and darkness threatened to swallow them whole. With everything on the line, Jenna faced the rising inferno of despair. She felt it, her choice loomed above her like a sword ready to drop. What would she choose? Boundless power or the pure and fragile love embodied in her daughter's trembling form? Make your choice. The shadows screamed, their voices multiplying in a cacophony of anguish. Jenna's breath hitched. Was it even a choice anymore? The cold whispered sweetly in her ear, bending reality until it felt like the ultimate truth. Then, as the ground finally broke apart, sending them spiraling into the void, she realized, the real battle had just begun. Would the darkness consume them, or could she find a way to fight against her very nature? As darkness engulfed them, one question loomed larger than the dread itself: what awaited them in the depths below? Falling. The sensation was gut-wrenching, dizzying. Jenna clutched Jamie as they plummeted into a thick, oppressive blackness. They could feel the shadows wrestling against them, clawing at their skin, but Jenna held on tight, determined to protect her daughter as the void embraced them. "Mommy!" Jamie screamed, her voice breaking the silence like glass shattering. Jenna squeezed her eyes shut, praying, feeling a rush of panic. What was happening? Was this the end? But in the depths of that dark unknown, something flared to life, a spark igniting within her chest, echoing her defiance. It pulsed against the void, radiating warmth and strength. She focused on that light, the thought of Jamie, her pulse steadying against the chaos. "Hold on, Jamie. We'll get through this." Jenna cried out, even as the shadows converged, their whispers becoming a roar, a swirling tempest that sought to obliterate her will. As they fell deeper, the void shifted. Colors, the faintest hues of crimson and violet, drifted in and out of focus. Forms emerged from the dark, warped versions of human silhouettes, contorted faces twisted in an eternal scream. Each visage seemed to taunt her, whispering promises of surrender. "You cannot win," one of them hissed, its mouth stretching into a mocking grin. "You will join us, you belong to the darkness now." "No!" Jenna shouted back, her voice a lifeline amid the cacophony. "I will never belong to you." The shockwave of her defiance rippled through the void. Jenna felt the energy build, the warmth expanding within her, glaring defiantly against the advancing shadows. The ground lurched beneath them mid-fall, morphing into a surface of pulsing light that crackled beneath her feet. They landed hard, but Jenna barely noticed, her gaze darted around, scanning the surreal landscape. They were no longer falling, but standing at the edge of a dense mist, swirling clouds that glowed with an eerie luminescence. Towering structures rose around them, resembling ancient ruins that whispered of long-forgotten rituals. "Mommy, I'm scared," Jamie whimpered, her small voice quaking in the silence. Jenna knelt, pulling her daughter close, feeling the warmth radiate between them. "I know, but we can't give in. We have to find a way out of here." "Look!" Jamie pointed, her voice wavering but insistent. A narrow path unfurled before them, weaving through the mist, illuminated by flickers of alternating light. Jenna could feel the shadows creeping back, searching for weaknesses, but the radiance from Jamie seemed to fight them off, wrapping around them like a protective cocoon. "Whatever happens, don't lose sight of me," Jenna instructed, pushing fear aside. They had to move before the veil closed in around them. With resolution stiffening her spine, she grasped Jamie's hand and took the first step down the path. Each footfall echoed slightly, the sound bouncing back as if they were the only beings left in this forsaken world. With every step, Jenna could sense the watchful eyes of the shadows lingering just beyond the mist. They clung to the edges, whispering tantalizing uncertainties aimed at sinking into her psyche. "You'll never escape," one hissed, taunting her. "Your fate is sealed. You are the heir to the darkness." Jenna swallowed hard, fighting back a surge of doubt. "No!" she retorted with defiance. "You don't know me." The shadows recoiled, hissing in apparent frustration, but their presence pressed closer, ominously tightening like a noose around her determination. As they walked deeper into the unknown, Jenna's heart raced. What lay ahead? Would they face something even worse than the shadows? But it was Jamie's tight grip urging her on, love pulsing stronger than fear, brighter than despair. Suddenly, the path opened into a vast chamber, a dazzling expanse that stretched infinitely. In the center stood an enormous mirror, its surface swirling like liquid night. The shadows gathered around, forming a circle as they hissed louder, a desperate chant rising into a bone-chilling crescendo. Jenna felt the air thicken as their voices intertwined, and she realized the mirror was not just a reflection, it was a portal, a gateway to their worst fears, their darkest truths. "Face it!" the voices screamed. "Show us what you fear most." Jenna's breath hitched as the swirling mist began to shift, images coalescing, dragging broken memories from the recesses of her mind. She saw herself, the moments of doubt, the crushing grief of loneliness, and then, darker things. The past looming larger than life, shadows contrasting the beautiful dreams she clung to. Mommy Jamie's voice was small, shaky, filled with uncertainty. "Stay close." Jenna replied sharply, panic slicing through her resolve as she stepped toward the mirror. It pulsed, blurring the line between reality and nightmare, whispering promises and threats intertwined. Time seemed to stretch. The shadows throbbed with anticipation. Jenna's heart raced. What would emerge from the mirror? Was this truly just her fear or something more sinister coming to claim her? Between the chilling whispers and her daughter's frightened eyes, one thing became painfully clear: they were not just fighting for survival, they were about to confront their deepest horrors and unleash whatever lay dormant within. As the mirror's surface illuminated, the shadows shrieked, their voice a single, unified cry that echoed into the depths of Jenna's soul. Welcome to your truth. What awaited them as the darkness coiled tighter? Would courage or despair lead them to their fate? The mirror shimmered, drawing Jenna closer with an unnatural pull. Its surface rippled like a dark sea, and for a moment, she thought she glimpsed Jamie's reflection mingled with her own, twisting and contorting in the depths. An icy chill crept up her spine, the shadows hissing in anticipation, demanding she step forward. Do it, Jenna. The voices echoed, their tone a horrible blend of mockery and eerie urgency. Face your truth. She hesitated, heart pounding like a war drum, the weight of every crushing memory warping her resolve. What truth? What would emerge? Fragments of her past fluttered in the air like ominous butterflies, taunting her with colors of shame and sorrow. The voices surged again, now frantic. You must choose. The moment stretched, a thick blanket of dread smothering her thoughts. Jenna closed her eyes tightly, squeezing Jamie's hand as if her grip alone could shield them from whatever horror loomed behind that veil. Whatever happens, I'm here with you, she whispered, opening her eyes to the pulsating darkness again. The whispers intensified, stinging her ears. You cannot escape your fate. But then the light within her swelled, igniting an ember of courage. No. You're wrong. I am not a captive of my past. Her voice carried an echo of defiance, almost pushing back against the shadows that writhed in protest. As if struck by her conviction, the mirror trembled violently. The surface split and morphed, revealing surreal landscapes of lava and ice intertwined. Shadows danced hungrily within those realms, a cacophony of nightmares threatening to swallow them whole. Jenna. Look. Jamie gasped, her small voice filled with terror. Jenna turned to see the mirror reflecting something worse, a version of herself. The shadowy figure appeared, eyes hollow and expression welling with despair. It reached out, its hand extending through the mirror as if wanting to grasp her, wanting to pull her in. The shadows around them surged forward, a frenzied scream ripping through the chamber. Join us, Jenna. Embrace your darkness. The force of the darkness pressed against Jenna, squeezing the air from her lungs. Unrelenting panic clawed at her chest, but with a fierce resolve, she pulled Jamie closer. We'll fight it. She cried, heart racing, searching the chaos for a way out. In that frayed moment, a new image flickered within the depths of the mirror. A vision of Jamie, alone, surrounded by an overwhelming void. Jenna felt ice run through her veins, a terror so profound it ignited her very marrow. No! She shouted, the sound ringing in the desolate chamber. You won't take her. Channeling every ounce of love and determination, she took a step forward, eyes locked on the dark reflection that held Jamie's fate. You are not real. You are just a shadow. I will not be your heir. The mirror flickered violently, spitting sparks of darkness as Jenna felt a wave of energy crash over her. She couldn't let fear dictate her actions. With one final breath, she lunged towards the mirror, shaking fear from her mind. Come on, Jamie. We're breaking through. Jenna felt it, the shadows clawing, howling in rage as they lost their grip. The chamber exploded with light, a thunderous roar reverberating off the walls as reality distorted and cracked. The blinding brilliance enveloped them, the world collapsing in on itself as her spirit soared, fueled by the unyielding bond between mother and daughter. But in that moment of triumph, Jenna glimpsed behind the shimmer of victory faint, chilling figures forming on the other side of the mirror. Shadows she thought she had left behind. As cracks formed in the mirror, she felt their icy breath against her neck. Fear us, they whispered, the weight of despair returning, heavier than before. Because we are always waiting. With one desperate push, Jenna grasped Jamie's hand and stepped through the threshold. As the mirror shattered, bathed in nightmarish screams, they tumbled forward into a new reality, but Jenna's heart sank. A darkness still lingered, suffocating and keen. Ahead, through an ominous fog, shadows coiled in. Malice, eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Mommy?" Jamie's voice cracked with uncertainty. Jenna felt dread latching onto her like a vice, whispering terrible promises. "I don't know what's waiting for us," she choked out, trepidation creeping into her thoughts. "But we have to keep going." Together, they stepped into the encroaching dark, fear gnawing at their heels. What horrors awaited them in this new realm? Would they ever escape the shadows lurking at their backs? The fog thickened as Jenna and Jamie pressed on, hand in hand, heartbeats synchronized in their shared fear. The oppressive silence wrapped around them, punctuated only by the unsettling sounds of shuffling from the shadows. Jenna's senses prickled. She felt eyes watching, waiting for a moment of weakness to strike. But whatever horror lay ahead, they had faced the worst and they were still here. "Stay close to me," Jenna urged, squeezing Jamie's hand tighter. The reassurance was as much for herself as it was for her daughter. They had fought back the darkness before, and she wouldn't falter now. Courage blossomed in her chest, pushing back against the dread coiling in her gut. The shadows seemed to shift, elongating toward them, twisting like smoke in a turbulent wind. Faces and whispers emerged, whispering tantalizing secrets of despair and resignation. "Why fight?" one hissed, seductively smooth. "Join us, and the pain will cease. Embrace your true nature." "No," Jenna shouted, her voice breaking through the layers of darkness. "You're nothing but lies." She pulled Jamie closer, shielding her from their tempting deceit. The shadows hissed in frustration, but she pressed onward, her spirit ignited by protection. Finally, they reached a clearing, where the fog receded to reveal a barren landscape littered with remnants of past horrors, decayed relics, twisted remnants of lives overtaken by the darkness. A lonely tree stood in the center, its branches bare but sturdy, like a warrior gazing defiantly at the sky. Jenna felt drawn to it, as if it called her to shed the weight of fear. "Look, Mommy." Jamie pointed, her small voice steady despite the unease. "Is that a way out?" Jenna turned to see a flicker of light emanating from the tree's direction. Hope flourished within her chest. "It might be," she answered, gently tugging Jamie forward. But as they approached, she sensed a heaviness in the air, a foreboding warning as the shadows swarmed, angry, loss-obsessed. "Leave while you still can." An echo bounced around them, reverberating through the clearing. "Flee the light, accept your doom." Your past will always follow. Terror clawed at Jenna, but she refused to let it tether her. "Jamie, we need to keep moving." Each step became a tangible act of defiance as they approached the glowing tree. Its bark shimmered, and as they neared, Jenna felt warmth radiating, pushing back against the crushing chill that had settled in her bones. Then she saw it, nestled among the roots, a small, shimmering portal, pulsating with promise. It swirled with golden light, contrasting sharply against the oppressive dark. "It's a way out, honey. We can do this." But suddenly, the shadows surged forward, causing the ground to tremble beneath them. "You cannot escape." They howled, a mix of anguished screams and threats. "Your essence belongs to us. Join us or suffer." Jenna knelt, feeling her resolve crystallize. "No!" she shouted, looking Jamie squarely in the eyes. "We will not succumb. Remember our love. It's stronger than their darkness." She held Jamie's gaze, and in that moment, they shared an understanding, a promise. Arms linked tighter than chains, Jenna took a leap of trust, dragging Jamie with her toward the radiant light. "Let us go." As they crossed the threshold, Jenna felt a surge of power, not from the shadows, but from their union. The shadows clawed at them, shrieking in desperation as the light enveloped them, radiant and pure. In what felt like a heartbeat, everything fell silent. The weight of the darkness peeled away, leaving only an electric pulse of warmth. Surrounded by daylight, Jenna and Jamie stood at the edge of a vibrant field, blooming flowers all around and sunlight bursting through the trees overhead. Jenna gasped, blinking against the sudden brilliance. "We did it," Jamie. We're free. Tears welled up in her eyes, filled with exhaustion and joy. We are home. But the tension lingered, coiled like a spring. The shadows may have receded, but they would never be fully gone. They would always be a reminder of the darkness lurking just beneath the surface. She knelt beside Jamie, wiping away the remnants of fear she saw etched on her face. No matter what happens, Jenna whispered, we face it together. Always. Jamie nodded, confidence blossoming in her eyes. We're a team. Jenna pulled Jamie close, allowing the warmth from the sun to wrap around them like a protective blanket. The shadows had tried to claim them, but they had forged ahead, united and defiant. Together, they walked into the light, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. The world around them was filled with possibilities, and the fight against the darkness had taught them one undeniable truth: love was their greatest strength. As they stepped into their new beginning, Jenna felt the weight in her chest lift. Hope and determination surged through her, propelling them forward into a future that was theirs to shape. A future that would remain alive because they had chosen light. Now that you've experienced this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to this channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let us keep the community growing. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to know what you think. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything.